Alright, so this is going to be the application that we are going to create today. I've been waiting so long to make this. This is going to be a blast. Now, as you can see, we can type messages, etc., append it to there. It's resizable, if I can get it to resize. It has a nice custom scroll bar. It's movable and all that good stuff. So make sure to stick around because I think you'll really like this one. And if you have any questions regarding the code, feel free to join the Discord server. There will be a link in the comments pinned, as well as in the description. And as always, the source code will be available on my Patreon. Link to that will be in the description as well. That being said, let's get started. Alright, so first things first, you want to open up Visual Studio 2019 or whichever version you're using. Create a new project. We're going to search for WPF and usually it's going to be the first one that pops up. This is a .NET Core project. And I click next. We can name this Super Chat because why not? As for the framework, I'm going to choose .NET 5.0, which is .NET Core. There is a misconception about it being .NET Framework for some reason. It's not, don't worry. Create. Alright, so once the project starts, it's going to look something like this. The theme might look a little bit different for you. Doesn't matter. I'm going to click this vertical split in order to make sure that I have my markup on the right hand side and the designer on the left hand side. Just makes it easier to actually look at the application whenever it comes around to it. Starting off, we want to build the actual folder structure. So we're going to add a folder just like that. We're going to name this MVVM. We're going to make a couple of copies of it. Actually 3. I made 4, but we're going to need more, so it's okay. First one's going to be called view. Second one's going to be called view model. And the last one's going to be called model. Now we can select all these and group them underneath the MVVM folder. So we select model, view, and view model. Group them underneath MVVM. This last one, we can name it core. We can copy and paste it again. We'll call this themes. And one last one for icons. Just like that. Now let's start with the actual window properties. We can remove the title because we won't be seeing it anyways because we'll be changing it and we'll use our own custom title bar. As for the height, we'll set it to, we'll do 650. The width is going to be 1200. You can zoom out a little bit so we can actually see the window. Great. I'll actually zoom in here as well so you can see it a bit better. As for the background, we'll do something like 36... hashtag 3639 3F. Yeah, something like that. The window style is going to be none. Allow transparency is going to be true. And the resize mode is going to be can resize with grip. If we run this application by clicking F5, we can see that we now have this window, which we can't move yet, but we can resize it. Now, we might as well set up the data context straight away. We don't have a view model yet, but we can easily create one by right-clicking the view model folder, going to add, class. I will name this main view model. We're not going to write any code in here just yet. We're just going to use it as a data context. So underneath window, between grid and window, we'll do window.dataContext. We'll do open bracket, main view model, model, self-close that. And you can see that we're getting an exception right now because it can't find it. So we need to add the actual XML namespace. We can do so by holding Alt and Enter and then selecting the first one that pops up. Here we go. Still not might render, but we can just rebuild the solution by Control-Shift-B and that fixes it. Right, so we now have our window with a data context set up. Now, given that the view model is actually, the data context, which is the main view model, it's empty, so it doesn't have much use yet. That's fine. We'll be working on the design first. Now, in our grid, we want to set up some definitions. We'll start with row definitions. So we'll do grid.row definitions. Inside here, we'll do row definition. Self-close that. We need 2 of them. We're going to actually explicitly specify the size, or the height of the first one. So we'll do height, and we'll set it to 25. This is for the actual title bar that we'll have up here. Now we'll do the same thing, but for column definitions. So we'll do column definition, but we need 3 of these. Actually, we'll go with 2. The first one is going to have the width of 200. And then while still being inside the main grid, this one, we want to create a border, which isn't self-closed. We want to make sure that it spans over all the columns. So we'll do grid.columnSpan. We'll set it to 2. The background is going to be 25, 25, 25. That's 26, 26. We'll do 25, 25, 25. Looking good. Inside this border, we want a grid. There we go. We want to set the horizontal alignment to stretch. There we go. We want to create a label. There we go. Set the content to essentially what you want your chat app to be named. We'll call this bunny chat because why not? We'll set the foreground to gray, followed by the font weight. We'll set it to semi-bold. There we go, looking so nice. And what's really cool about this is you can actually download custom fonts and utilize them as well. So if you don't like the default font, then by all means feel free to change it. Now we want to add the buttons that are going to be all the way to the right. So inside the grid we want to create a stack panel. There we go. I want to set the horizontal alignment to the right. The orientation, oops, I can't spell, orientation is going to be horizontal. So now it's technically all the way over here. And we'll create 3 buttons. We'll do button, there we go, self-close. We'll set the width to 20, the height to 20. And for the content, for, you know, the X button, so we'll do content. You can actually use this thing right here. I'll be leaving a link to this in the description as well. I'm going to go with this one because I think it looks nice. There we go. Now we should technically specify a theme for this button, but for now we'll just do background transparent and border thickness. Oops, not border brush. Border thickness is going to be 0. We'll change the foreground to gray and changing the font weight to bold. And for the other 2 buttons, we're gonna place one right above it. This one's gonna be the one to maximize the window. And for the content, you can use a square. Essentially, searching for something like UTF-8 empty square on Google is usually going to bring this up. You can just copy paste it. And we also need one for minimizing the window. And same thing goes here. You can just Google the like a minimize mark UTF-8 and it's going to prompt you with one. I don't like how low that one is compared to these 2. So I'm going to put a 3 pixel margin on the bottom. We'll do margin 0003. And that looks way better. Now, if we're to run this application and click any of these buttons, they're not going to really do anything. There we go. Nothing happens. And that's because we haven't added any logic to them. And there are multiple ways of doing so. You can create commands and binding the buttons. But to me, honestly, if you ask me, I feel like that's a bit too much. Considering these are only for this entire view, we're allowed to use some code behind. And it's a very sensitive topic. I know a lot of people are going to be like, no, I don't want any code behind at all. When it's specific to this window, I feel like it's okay. But only if it's specific to this window. That being said, let's start by actually making the window movable. So heading over to the border, we're going to add an event called mouse down. We're going to make a new event handler. We're going to click F7 to enter the actual code behind, which we can clean up a little bit. There we go. As for the border mouse down event, we want to check if e.left, left button equals essentially pressed. So it's going to be mouse button state dot pressed. If so, we want to do drag move. And that's how easy it is. It's going to clean that up a little bit. Now, if I run this application again and I press the left mouse button and I move it around, we can see that the window is now movable. Amazing. All right, we can stop debugging the application and let's start working on the buttons. Let's start with a minimize one. So we're going to add a click event, click, new event handler. See, I don't like that it's called button click, so we'll change it to button minimize click. That makes way more sense. We also got to change it in here. Otherwise, we won't be able to find the function to be called. This one's going to be easy. It's going to be application.current. The main window dot window state equals window state. There we go. Minimized. So not maximized. Minimized. There we go. If we run the application, click the button, we can see that it now minimizes. Amazing. The maximize button is going to be a little bit more complicated. It's going to be 3 lines of code rather than 1. Don't worry, it's going to be super easy though. So we'll do another click event right here. New event. I'm going to call this window state button click, heading into the code behind, changing the name. Now we'll make the code super readable by doing if application current dot main window dot window state not equals window state maximized. So if the current window state is not equal to maximized and we click the button, then we want to change it to maximized. So we'll do application.current.main window state equals window state maximized. Else we just want to bring it back to normal. So we'll do application.current.main window state equal window state. Oh, window state. Window state. There we go. Normal. We can clean this up a bit. There we go. Now let's try it out. Click this one. It's maximized and it's back to normal. Easy. And the last one, which is arguably the easiest one as well, we'll do click, new event handler. We'll call it close button click. There we go. Heading into the code behind. And let's see. Application.current.shutdown. That's how easy it is. Right, so the border is now done. We can minimize that one, so we don't have to worry about that one. Now we're going to continue with the actual contact list on the left-hand side. This is going to be a grid. The background is going to be slightly darker than the actual background of the window. We'll do something like 2F3136, I believe. I guess we're about to find out once I actually... Oh yeah, it's all the way up there. Let's change the row. We'll do grid.row1. Oh yeah, that's looking great. We want to add some row definitions. Grid.row definitions. We'll add 3 of them, so we'll do row definition. There we go, self-close. The first one's going to have the height of 50. The last one's going to have a height of 60. There we go. Now underneath the row definitions, we'll add a label. The content's going to be contacts, vertical alignment, center, font weight, we'll put it at medium. Foreground, we'll put it at gray. It's looking great. I just want a little bit more margin coming out from the left. So we'll do margin, we'll do 8000. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Underneath this label, we want a list view, which we can self-close. The item source, we're going to be doing binding, and we'll bind it to contacts. Now, looking at the main view model, we obviously don't have anything in here yet, but we'll get around to it. We'll change the background to transparent. The border thickness, not the border brush, the border thickness to 0. The grid.row to 1. So now it's down here. The selected item, and there isn't a whole lot more we can do without actually creating a theme, as well as adding some things to the main view model. So let's start by adding a theme. Right clicking the theme folder, we'll click add resource dictionary. We'll call this contact card, and this is actually going to specify the look of each item within the list view. So each list view item will inherit this theme. We'll start by creating a style. Can't even spell. There we go, style. We'll do target type, list view item, X key. It's going to be contact card. We'll add some style triggers. We'll do a trigger with the property is selected. Value is true. Oops, value true. Then what we want to do is we want to create we want to use a setter with the property background. Change it to a slightly darker color to indicate that it's been pressed or that it's selected. So we'll set the value of, I don't know, 29 to be 2F. Should be good. Now underneath the triggers, we want a default setter for the background. So we'll do property background, because this is going to be the default background of the actual item itself. Value, a slightly lighter color, I guess. We'll do something like 39.3b40, 39.3b40, I believe. That looks about right. Now the last setter is actually going to be for the template itself. So we'll do setter. And we're not going to specify the property here. Actually, we are. We'll do a template, and we'll specify the value down here. So setter value, and it's an open tag. So we'll do control template. We'll set its target type to list view item. We'll create a border, which isn't going to be self-closed. We'll bind the background to begin with. It's going to be a template binding, so we're actually going to bind whatever we're setting it to be as a property. So whatever the background property is, that's what we're binding the border background to. The height's going to be about 50. The corner radius, making it have more round corners, to 4. And we also want some margins, so the items aren't like, it doesn't look like they're connected with one another. And since we added 8 to the left on the actual label previously, we'll do it here too. We'll do margin, we'll do 8 from the left, 2 from the top, 8 from the right, and 2 from the bottom. Now you can look at it as the frame of our contact card. Now we actually want to add some content to it, so we'll do a stack panel, orientation, horizontal. We'll add some margin here too. We'll do 10 from the left, and then all zeros. And since we're not pulling any data from an actual API, we'll just create a border with the rounded corners, essentially an ellipse that looks like a profile picture. This can be easily bound later on. Instead of using a border, you can use a image control and just bind the source property. But for now, we'll do border, self-close. The width's going to be 30, the height's going to be 30, the background is going to be corn, flower, blue, and the corner radius is going to be 25, which I think is a bit excessive, but it's going to make it round. Right, now next to the circular profile picture, we want to display the user's username and the last message that they sent. Or, well, I guess the last message within the chat, not necessarily from that person. We'll do, actually we'll do a stack panel. And within the stack panel, we'll put a label. We're actually going to put 2 labels, so we can copy and paste that one right now. The content is going to be binding. Well, it's going to be bound to the username property. Now again, don't be confused. We haven't declared anything within the main view model yet. So this username property is not non-existent, but it's going to make sense as soon as we start working on the main view model and the models. It's all going to connect real easy. The foreground is going to be white, and we'll mess with the margins once we actually see what it looks like. This one's going to be the same. It's just going to be bound to last message. And the foreground is going to be gray. We also want the font size to be a little bit smaller, so we'll set it to like 10. Font size 10. And that's pretty much it. We can now change the item container style. So the item, no, we can't, because we that's my bad. We got to go into app.saml. In here, you want to create a resource dictionary followed by resource dictionary dot merge dictionaries. In here, we're going to create a resource dictionary, self-close with the source, and now we get a point towards the themes folder and the actual item. There's going to be /themes/ contact card.saml. There we go. Now we can actually use it. So going back to our main view, we'll do item container style. It's going to be static resource, and there we have our contact card. Heck yeah. Now nothing's displaying because we don't have any contacts yet. Alright, so now we actually want to add some contacts. I'll start by creating a contact model. By going to model, creating a new class, we'll call this contact model. We'll add some properties such as prop, tab, we'll do string username. Now we'll do an image source as well, so we'll do prop, it'll be a string too, we'll call it image source. There we go. I mean, they're gonna have a collection of messages as well. Let's create a message model as well. We'll do a message model. It's gonna contain a string, which is gonna be username. We'll do a username color. Color. We'll do a image source as well. So image source, obviously a message. So we'll do prop string message. The time the message was sent is a good one. So we'll do date time. We'll call it time. You know, spelling it correctly would be nice too. We also want to check if it's a native origin, and that's going to make sense later. Prop bool is native origin. Essentially, we want to check if the last message was from me. We'll also do a bool checking whether or not it's the first message. And we'll make it nullable by adding a question mark right next to the bool. Going back into our contact model, we can now add a observable collection. So we'll do prop observable collection. Importing the namespace. We'll make it of type message model. There we go. We'll call it messages. And we'll also get the last message by doing prop string last message. And we'll just use a lambda expression to indicate the body. So we'll do lambda, and rather than doing this, we can just specify messages dot last using some link, and then we'll get the actual message. There we go. All right, now we can actually do some cool binding stuff. So heading into the main view model, which we have right here, we want two collections. We want a observable collection, importing the namespace of type. This is going to be message model. We got to import that type as well. We'll call this messages. We can duplicate that one, change the type to contact model. We'll call this contact. We'll add a constructor by typing CTOR and then tab. In here, we'll instantiate the two collections that we just created. So messages equals new observable collection of type message model. And same goes for contacts, and change the type to contact model. There we go. Now, obviously, in order to showcase items, we need some items to showcase, obviously, and these collections are empty. So we'll go ahead and do messages.add new message model. We'll do username is equal to Allison. The username color is going to be equal to a hex value. In this case, we'll do 49A FF. Image source is going to be I guess whatever image you want. I'm just gonna pick one from Google real quick. There we go. The message is gonna be test date time. Oh, it's just time. It's gonna be equal to date time dot now. Its native origin is gonna be false. First message, however, is going to be true. And talking about what I said earlier regarding appending more messages, let's go ahead and do that. We'll copy this one. We'll do a for loop. We'll iterate through it 3 times. We'll paste it in here. Instead of first message being true, we'll put it to false. And we can copy this again. Now, the reason to why we're doing it like this is because we don't have a external API to pull any data from. If you do, then great. That's what you should do. But in order to provide some data for visibility's sake, this is what we're gonna do. So instead of 3, we'll do 4. We'll change this to bunny. Oh, bunny. Its native origin, we'll put it to true. We can remove this line right here. Then we'll add 1 outside of the loop as well, like so. We'll type last rather than message or test. And then I guess we'll create 5 contacts based on all these messages. There we go. 5 contacts, add new contact model. The username is going to be equal to, we'll do string interpolation. Now, obviously, you want to get the names based on each message, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just do something like this. Now, the image source is going to be something that we just pull off of Google, and the messages bound to this contact is going to be, well, messages. Now, since we already bound the list view to contacts, we should be able to see 5 contacts. Yeah, look at that. And we can also click each item. How nice. We can also move it around. Heck yeah. Now, if you'd rather use the image than the actual, blue circle, what you can do is you can create an ellipse, open it up, do ellipse fill, open that up. I will do image brush, soft close, image source. We'll do binding image source. And the ellipse is going to have the width of 30, height 30. Running the application, we can now see that it uses the image that I specified earlier. What we want to add now is this bottom thingy, which we'll specify underneath the actual list view, right? So going underneath, we'll create a stack panel, open it up. We'll do grid.row. We'll set it to 2 because we want to specify that it's in here. Orientation, horizontal. The background is going to be slightly darker, something like 29 2B 2F. Yeah, that looks good. Let's go ahead and add a border, which is we're essentially creating the blue thing we created earlier, but over here. We'll start by adding the corner radius. We'll add it like a 25. The width is going to be 30. Height is going to be 30. The background is going to be, we'll do a green color. We'll do 3B FF6F. Also specifying a hashtag in front of it. I really like that color. Right, now we gotta add a margin as well in order for it to line up with everything. So 10 plus 8, that's 18. We'll do margin. We'll do 18 from the left, 0, 0, 0. There we go. Now, right next to the border, since it's going horizontal, we want to create a stack panel where the orientation is actually going to be in vertical as it is by default. So we don't have to change that. What we will change, however, is the vertical alignment. We'll set it to center and we'll add 2 labels. First one's going to be bound to, well, actually here, we don't have anything to bind it to since we don't have a profile model yet. So we'll do content, we'll say username, set foreground to white, font weight's going to be semi-bold. Here we go. We'll copy and paste this like so. Instead of username, we'll do a custom status. Change the foreground to gray. Font weight's going to be medium, which is essentially the same, is it not? Yeah, we'll keep it at semi-bold. Set the font size to something smaller. So font size, we'll do like 10. And now we gotta fix the margins because they're way too far apart. So doing it on the first one, we'll set margin to 0 from the left, -5 from the top, 0 from the right, and -5 from the bottom as well. We'll do something similar to the second one as well. Maybe -8 on the top. Yeah. All right, that looks great. All right, let's run the application to take a look at it. Looking great so far. Now, you can obviously mess with the sizing of things if you want things to look better. Oh, we also got to change this thing. That I don't like that. All right, so we're essentially done with the top bar, the left-hand side. Now we just gotta be able to display the content in the middle, right? So we can actually minimize this. There we go. And this thing is going to consist of 3 rows. So we're going to have the top row for our username and, you know, the call button and whatnot. The middle is going to be reserved for the messages, obviously. And then the bottom is going to be reserved for, you know, typing the messages. All right, final stretch. You got this. So we'll start by creating a grid. The column is going to be 1 and the row is also going to be 1. Grid.row definitions, since we needed 3 rows. The row definition. First one's going to have the height of 50 and the last one, the third one, is going to have a height of 70. Starting off with the border at the top, we'll create a border. It's not going to be self-closed. It's essentially going to be the same thing as we had up here, just a little bit different. So we'll do grid, which isn't self-closed. Horizontal alignment, stretch. We'll add a all-around margin of 8. We'll add a label. The content is going to be at the username. The foreground is going to be white. Font weight is going to be bold. And the margin is going to be 5 from the left, 0 at the top, 5 from the right, and 0 at the bottom. Vertical alignment is going to be center, making sure that it's centered. And that's looking good to me. Now we also want to add some, you know, the call button and the camera button on the right-hand side. So underneath the label, we'll do a stack panel. Orientation is going to be horizontal. And the horizontal alignment is going to be right. I want to create 2 images here. Image, self-close. The width is going to be 20. The height is going to be the same, so 20. We'll do render options dot bitmap scaling mode. We'll set it to font. We'll add some margin here. We'll do 5 on both left and right. So we'll do 5, 0, 5, 0. And we can't forget the source. Now, I went ahead and added 4 icons. It's going to be a camera, a phone, a plus sign, and a send icon, I guess. We're going to change the build action to content and copy to output directory, copy always. Now, as for the source, it's going to be /icons/phone.png, I believe. Yeah, we'll copy this one, paste it above it. We'll change this. We'll actually change the bottom one to camera. Yeah. Right, look at that. There's something missing. It needs a border. So going back to the border that we specified, we'll do a border brush. It's going to be a bit darker. So we'll do 2F3136. The border thickness. Now you can specify this just like how you do with the margins. So it goes from left, top, right, and bottom. And we want to have a border at the bottom. So we'll do 0, 0, 0, and I don't know, 2. That's looking so nice. Look at that, we're almost done. Now we can minimize the border. And now we're going to add a list view. This one's going to be pretty simple. It's just going to be a list view. The item source is going to be bound to the selected contact dot messages. So we're going to be selecting a contact and we need to bind whoever we select to a property. We're going to get that property and then we're going to get the property within the selected property. Does that make sense? If not, it will in just a sec. We'll add a background property. A lot of properties now. Transparent. Border thickness going to be 0. Item container style. We need to specify a style for that. So we'll do static resource, and we're setting it to something in just a sec. The margin, we want to keep the 8 margin theme going. So we'll do margin 8 0 0 0. And we also want to specify the correct rows. We'll do grid.row and set it to 1. Now for the item container style, let's go ahead and create a new theme. So we'll do add resource dictionary, and we'll call this chat item, and we're going to add that. And as per usual, we'll create a style. We'll specify the target type that we're styling, which is list view item, the x.key, so we can refer to it later on. We'll call it chat item. We'll do a setter. The property is going to be template. We need a setter value. We'll create a control template right here, followed by a stack panel. Stack panel, there we go. Orientation is going to be horizontal. Same thing here, we're going to create an ellipse, just like that. Set the width to 30. We'll set the width to 30, the height to 30. We'll add some margin to it, so we'll add 10 on the left, 0, 0, and then -5. I think that'll be fine. We'll see. We'll do ellipse.fill. It's going to be an image brush. We're going to bind, or we're going to, the image source is what we're going to bind. So we'll do binding, set it to image source, render options, bitmap scaling mode, and we'll set it to font. We'll clean that up a little bit. There we go. And underneath the ellipse, we want a stack panel with the orientation being horizontal yet again. We'll add a label. The content's going to be bound to the username. So binding username. The foreground is going to be bound to the username color. Binding. So username color. Font weight. It's going to be semi-bold. The vertical alignment is going to be center. And we also get to add some margin. 0, 0, -5, and 0. Then right next to the username, we want to display the time that the message was sent. So we'll essentially just copy this, save some time, paste it in. The content's going to be bound to time, obviously. The foreground's going to be, we'll do gray for now. I want a slighter darker gray. So we'll do 44, 47 for D. Yeah, that's going to be good. We'll keep it at semi-bold. We'll change the font size to a bit, something smaller. Change it to 8. Vertical alignment center, and we don't need any margin. Any changes to the margin at least. Right, and then we obviously want to display the message as well, of course. Let's actually wrap the stack panel that we just created, this one, inside of another stack panel. So we can actually stack this on top of the message. So we'll see the message underneath the username at the time. So we'll do stack panel. And since the orientation is vertical by default, we don't need to change that. Let's move this into there. And in between these two, we want to create another label. Can copy this one, paste it in there. Binding is going to be message. Foreground, we'll set it to white. Font size is going to be whatever the default is, which I believe is 10 or 12, 14 perhaps. Vertical alignment center, and yeah, that should be good. Now the last thing, also we're getting these exceptions because we haven't bound anything yet, or there's nothing to bound to, or there's nothing to bind to. Now don't worry about these warnings and these 2 errors. That'll be fixed in just a sec. Now the last thing we need for this theme is underneath the setter. Want to do style.resources. We'll do a control template. There we go. We'll give it a key of custom row. We'll do a stack panel. Orientation is going to be horizontal. And we'll create a label in here. We'll bind the content to message. We'll do foreground white. And the margin is going to be slightly bigger because this is going to be the actual message if there's no image. So the thing that I explained earlier where we append the message underneath a message that has a image on the left hand side, this is essentially what we're styling right here. So on the left hand side we want to do 40 to make up for the non-existent image. We'll do -2, 0, -2. And now we're going to implement something that actually checks for whether this is the first message, when to use the style with the image and when not to do so. And that's so easy. Using data triggers is one of the coolest things with WPF. I'll show you right now. So we'll do style, data triggers, add a data trigger, the property, or I mean the the binding is going to be binding, and we'll do first message, and the value, if the value is false. So if it's not the first message, because we only want to display the profile picture if it's the first image or a first message, right? So if it's not, then we'll do setter property template value static resource, and where's the custom row? I want to self-close that as well. All right, let's go ahead and apply this chat item. So heading back to main window.sample. Actually, before doing so, we actually got to specify it in the app as well to register it globally. So we'll do chat item here instead of contact card. And now we can go ahead and add chat item here. Heck yeah. And changing the border brush to border thickness, obviously. Now again, we're having the issue where we can't see any messages, even though we actually have data now, but we've bound the item source to be the selected contact, and we haven't selected anything yet. And we also don't have a property named selected contact, and that's what we're gonna fix now. Actually, let's finish off this first before we start adding in the logic. So let's add the chat message box at the bottom, and then we'll go ahead and fix the view model. So underneath the list view, we're going to have a grid. Set the grid row to 2. We're gonna add some column definitions. Heck yeah. We're gonna add, we'll add 2 of them. The bottom one's gonna have a width of 90. Looking at it, we can see that it looks like this. I actually want to reserve this space right here for the 2 buttons that I'm gonna add. So let's go ahead and add underneath the grid column definitions, we'll add a text box. Not a text box, but a text box. We'll set the grid row to 1. We'll set the height to about 50. The text is going to be message at username. The style, we're going to have to specify a custom style for this because WPF does not have a watermark feature for the text box, which I think is completely absurd and it should be implemented. But for now, we gotta make a custom one, which isn't that hard. Not hard at all, actually. It's something that's pretty cool. But we'll get to that. So we'll do style, static resource. We'll just call it message box. We'll do column span, column span, there we go. Set it to 2 so it spans across the entire thing. And that should be good. Underneath the text box, we want to create a stack panel. You guessed it, the orientation is going to be horizontal. The horizontal alignment is going to be right. And the grid.column is going to be 1. We'll add some margin to it as well. So margin, we'll do 0 on the left, 0 on the top. We'll do 16 on the right and 0 at the bottom. Followed by 2 images to, instead of... So here's the thing. I'm using images rather than buttons right now because it's easier to style. Obviously, if you want to add functions to this, you'd want to use buttons bound to relay commands, for instance. But we'll get to it. But for now, we're going to do it like this. So we'll do source, not cursor, source dot slash icons slash, we'll do plus dot png, that's plug, that's plus. Oh, that's, okay. Not the size that I was anticipating. We'll do width 20, height 20. render options, bitmap scaling mode, font. We'll add some margin to this. We'll do margin, we'll do 5550. That looks centered to me. We'll also add one underneath. It's going to be 55516. Yeah, and instead of plus, we'll do send. There we go. Now, the only thing left to do is style this and then display the items in here, which is pretty easy. We'll start by creating the message box theme. So we'll do add resource dictionary, call it message box. We will create a style. There we go. The target type is going to be text box. The key is going to be message box. Setter, property, we'll do foreground, value gray. We'll add a couple of ones. We'll add font weight, medium. We'll add a margin of 8. There we go. Let's do a template setter. So we'll do setter, property template, as always. Setter.value. We'll add a control template with the target type of text box, followed by a border with a corner radius of 8, because we want to make it, you know, the actual message box a bit rounder. The background is going to be something like 3E4147. Inside the border, we'll create a grid, followed by a text box, which we won't self-close because we're going to add some input bindings. For the style, however, we'll do vertical alignment, we'll do stretch, vertical content alignment, center, because we want to center the text that's inside, horizontal alignment, not horizontal content alignment, but horizontal alignment. There we go. It's going to be stretch. We need to specify name, so we'll do x.name. We'll call message box. Background is going to be transparent. Text wrapping is going to be wrap. The border thickness is going to be 0. Foreground gray. Caret brush gray. And the margin, as always, going to be 8000. And the text property, we're going to do some bindings. We'll do binding message mode is going to be two-way. Update source trigger. Update source trigger is going to be property changed. All right, that was a lot of properties. Now we'll do text box, not style, but input bindings. There we go. We'll do key binding, self-close. It's going to be bound to a command. Binding, it's going to be send command. And the key that we'll use is return. What this is going to do is whenever we click enter on the keyboard, or the return key, we're going to be calling upon the send command, which we'll specify in the view model in just a bit. Now here comes the part about text boxes not having watermarks, that whole issue. So we're essentially going to be masking it. We're going to be having a text block, which is going to act as the watermark. And whenever the text property, whenever the value is, nothing, or it's an empty string, we'll change the visibility to visible. So underneath the text box, we want to create a text block, which isn't going to be self-closed. Is hit test visible false. The text is going to be at message. Vertical alignment is going to be center. Horizontal alignment is going to be left. Margins, margin is going to be 10,000. And the foreground is going to be dark gray. Dark gray. The text block style, not text, but style. Let's create a style in here. The target type, we're going to do X type text block. The target type is going to be text block. Setter, property, visibility. So this is what I was talking about, visibility. Value. It's going to be collapsed. There we go. And going back to data triggers that I was talking about earlier and how cool they are, we're going to use them again. So we'll do style dot triggers. We'll add a data trigger. The binding is actually going to be here. Let's see. Binding text, which is the property of the element name, or of the element with the element name message box, which we specified earlier up here. And the value, if it's nothing, or well, an empty string, we'll do setter, setter, property, visibility, value, visible. Right, that was kind of a lot. Let's go ahead and assign this now. So we got to register it first in the app.saml. We'll do message box, just like that. Going into the main window, we can see that it's right here. Look at it. Looking so good. Let's try it out. Let's run the application, see if everything works. I click it, I start typing something, and the watermark goes away. I love that feature. All right, so now the only thing left is to, I guess, fix the main view model. Let's head into the main view model. Now we're gonna add, a command for the actual, when we click enter, because then we bound it to a command, which is non-existent as of right now. So I'm just gonna do this. We'll do commands, and it's only gonna be one. And we also need the selected object, right? So we'll do, it's gonna be a full property. Actually, we'll do prop contact model selected contact. There we go. Because we're not changing this one from code, we're changing it from the view, so it'll be fine. We also need the message property for the text box when we're sending things, right? And we're changing that value from code, or we will be, because we want to, reset the actual text to be nothing again whenever we click enter. So we'll do prop. We'll actually do prop full string underscore message. There we go. And this is gonna inherit, or it's gonna call on property changed. Now, if you haven't seen my video on I notify property changed and this is confusing to you, then feel free to check it out. Otherwise, just follow along and you'll be fine. So we're gonna go into core, add class. We'll call this observable object. Right, so we're gonna inherit from I notify property changed, just like that, and then we're gonna import a namespace, like so. We'll implement the interface as well. And we'll do void, we'll do public void because we need to be able to access it. Public void on property changed. And we'll add an attribute, caller member name. There we go. We'll import a namespace. There we go. String property name equals null. Now we're going to check if the property changed event is null. If it's not, if it has a subscriber, then invoke the object. The sender is this, and we need new property changed event args, which is going to be property name, just like that. We can close that down. Now we can inherit from observable object, just like that. We'll import a namespace, and we're gonna call on property changed right there. Right, looking good. We also need a relay command, and a relay command, it's about 40 lines of code. In order to save some time on this video, because it's already pretty long, I'll probably fast forward this. And you can go ahead and pause the video and just check out the code if you want to. Alright, so this is the entire relay command. There might already be a video up on my channel where I explain the relay command and how to use it. As for now, again, just to save time, this is out of the scope of this tutorial, so let's not dive too deep into this. Let's head back into the main view model and actually create the command. So we'll do prop relay command. We'll call this, what was it called? Send command, I believe. We'll clean this up a little bit. We'll minimize that. We'll minimize this thing. And now we get to instantiate the actual command. So we'll do, inside the constructor, we'll do send command equals new relay command. O goes into an anonymous function. Now I want to add to the messages, so we'll do messages, add new message model. There we go, just like that, and post that off. The message is obviously going to be the message property that we specified above. And the first message, we're going to set it to false. This logic would change based on various parameters. As for now, we're keeping it at false. And once we've clicked it, we want to restore the actual message property. So we'll do message equals and just an empty string. Just like that. Now, if we run this, we should be able to type things in and click enter. It shouldn't show anything yet because we haven't, fixed this part. But as you can see, we can type and click enter and it's as if we're actually sending a message. Now, the last thing that we need to do if we head over to the main window.saml is head over to the actual contacts list. We want to bind the selected item in the contacts window. So we'll do selected item and binding and then the selected contact. And now, since we want to change we want to update this piece of UI right here. That means we're going to have to go back into our main view model, which we can find right there. Change this property right here to a full property. So we'll do prop full. It's going to be of type contact model. It's going to have a selected contact, just like that. Got to update that over here and over there. And it's going to be selected contact. There we go. Underneath here, we'll add on property changed. Oops, on property changed. There we go. Clean that up. And now when we run this, we should be able to see all the chats just like that. Now I used the same image for both of these. Changing that is super easy. Let's just try typing something. As we can see, we can now add messages here as well. Amazing. Now, if we want to fix the whole image thing, what we do is we head over to where I added bunny and changing that image right here. Now, everything is essentially done. The last thing, which isn't even like necessary, but it's just like a nice feature, is this whole scroll bar here. To me, it looks absolutely disgusting, and I would like something that looks way better. So I'll be adding a stylish scroll bar. I'm going to go into theme, resource dictionary. I'll call it stylish scroll bar. And I can't for the life of me figure out where I got this style from, nor if I've changed it at all. I've had it laying around for a while, so that's the one that I'm going to use. I will be leaving a link to this style in the description, and we're not going to go over the entire thing because as you can see, it's quite a lot. So once we have that, we're actually going to just register it within the app, as always. Stylish scroll bar. There we go. And that should be it. Let's go ahead and start this. Select a chat, resize it, and as you can see, we have the custom scroll bar right there. Heck yeah. All right, and the buttons, they work. And I think that's everything. If you have any questions, please make sure to join the Discord server. I'll do my best to answer your questions as soon as I can. If not, we have a lot of talented people in there. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe. It really helps out a lot. That being said, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.